If y'all were around when Harvey used to be on YouTube and had his channel, he often talked about Adam Housley. Well, he didn't often talk about him, but he did bring him up in conversations, especially when it came to some comments that he had made over the years, more so from his wife, Tamera Housley. And we're going to get to her in a second. We're probably going to go and reference the outburst that he had towards his wife on said comments. But before we get into all of that, I have to address this part right here, in which we're here to talk about in today's video, where you had Adam Housley leave this rather lengthy tweet about when it comes to food stamps. Now, in case y'all are unaware, it says the Trump administration, and I'm only reading the headline from what he quote tweeted on Twitter. The Trump administration may ban the use of food stamps for purchasing junk food, per the New York Post. So that's something that recently came up when it says that you probably won't be, you're going to be able to, not going to be able to buy certain types of food items using food stamps. If you want to get the junk food, they're basically going to consider it a luxury item, and you'll have to pay for that regularly on the card or in cash. You just can't use the food stamps in order to buy it. To which Adam Housley came back and responded to it by putting up this post right here, and we're going to break it down. It says, as a kid who grew up in neighborhood grocery stores since I was 5, I can't tell you how many times I saw people come in and buy crap food for their kids with food stamps, then open the wallet and use cash for liquor, beer, wine, and cigarettes. Now, framing that already, and how we all know how PC is when it comes to food stamps, even though stats and statistics say they are the biggest consumers, well, not the biggest consumers, but the main benefactors of welfare and food stamps, we know he's not talking about his own people. He's talking about black people. He's just not saying that in the post. And just look at the stuff that he's putting up there as an example: liquor, beer, wine, and cigarettes. And he said since he was the age of 5. Now, Adam Housley, I'm not exactly sure how old Adam is, but I'm going to say that Adam is definitely in his 50s, which means when he was 5, it was back in the 70s. So let me just put that out there right there. Let's continue. Then there were those who would repeatedly buy a lemon or lime, get the change, walk out of the door, throw them away, and do it again. And here's the thing. To my knowledge, I don't think you can get change back on food stamps unless at the time it was a little bit different. Maybe someone in the comments who was around during that time can let me know. Could you get change on food stamps back in the day? But because now you can't get change on food stamps. So people was looking at this sideways when he said that. Until they had enough change to buy cigarettes or alcohol. As a kid, it pissed me off because there are some people who could really use the help, and then there are others working the system. Let me tell you something. Adam Housley is not talking about his own people when he made this post. He was definitely talking about black people. We can read through the code speak. We can read between the lines. We know exactly what he's talking about. And people went in on him, but it was one post in particular that someone found, or maybe did some research on, that put some things into perspective when it came to Adam Housley. And it was this one right here. So someone put up, I guess they probably typed in some keywords to look up some things about Adam Housley, maybe like where he grew up. And if you can't tell, that is a picture of him and Tamera in that picture right then. Again, don't worry, I'm gonna get back to her in a second. It says Adam is a 6th generation from the Bay Area and was born and raised in wine country, growing up with a vineyard in his front yard. He has always been proud of his hometown and loves how it has become one of the most popular tourist destinations in the world. Now let's go to the part that's highlighted. 6th generation from the Bay Area and was born and raised in wine country, which means he comes from money. But the very interesting part about this is his raised in wine country and growing up with a vineyard in his front yard. If y'all don't know what a vineyard is, that's basically a place where they grow grapes to make wine. It is a big business. It is a multi-billion-dollar industry, and he grew up with one of those in his front yard, which means he basically grew up on land where this was being created, which means his family was raking in millions on top of millions of dollars monthly, not just annually, monthly, for a year. And they said 6th generation. Yeah, he's set for life. Adam Housley didn't even have to work whatsoever. He could have just lived off the money that his family made and would have been good. But he had a very interesting career choice. But I'll let his wife explain that when I bring the video up about some comments that she made. So when people read that and looked at it, they was like, and they looked at Adam Housley's story, they was like, wait a minute, Adam. At 5 years old, you was in grocery stores. You saw people using food stamps, but you grew up with a vineyard in front of your home. What grocery stores were you hanging out around when you were 5 years old? And people was even asking, were these grocery stores owned by his family? Because let's be real here. If he grew up with a vineyard in his front yard at the age of 5, he most likely wasn't down in the slums. Okay, he was in the suburbs somewhere, more than likely. So people were questioning the validity of Adam's so-called story that he was telling, and many people were not believing it whatsoever. Mainly, of course, it was mainly black people, because we wouldn't, like, a lot of black people wouldn't know, and something just didn't seem right with their story. And black people, when they can become some of the biggest Twitter sleuths, and this is what came up. And this actually came up multiple times, not in the form of the screenshot, but what is highlighted came up a few times when you just typed in like Adam Housley's background as far as how he grew up. And it was revealed that it was this. So people were looking at that and looking at the so-called story he gave and says something about this just doesn't seem right. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to transition a little bit now into his wife, Tamera Housley, and a comment she made on The Real, when The Real, that talk show that she used to be a part of, was on the air.
Like, there are some people who think that my husband is racist because he worked for a certain channel. I'm going to look in that camera right there and let everybody know my husband is not a racist.
And then this video popped up. As a matter of fact, this video popped up on a post as it was pertaining to the initial topic of this video, where it was a clip where Tamera Maury Housley decided she was going to get on there and defend her husband on The Real a few years ago. I'm not exactly sure when this episode aired, really could care less, where she's on there defending her husband, talking about people think that because her husband works for Fox News that he is a racist. And she says, I'm gonna look right into this camera and say that my husband is not a racist. First of all, why does Tamera sound like that? Why is she talking like that? I guess this is her turning on her sister girl act. Yes, we know that Tamera is biracial. She's a product of a white father and a black mother, as is her siblings, her twin sister Tia, and they also have two other brothers. Of course, the other one, Taj Maury, and then there's another unknown. Well, I wouldn't say unknown, but he's not a celebrity. He's not in the public eye, but there's 4 of them. And she got on there and turned on her whole, I guess this was her sister girl act while trying to fight that Karen inside, I guess. I don't know what it almost looked like she turned on a black accent too, because anyone who's heard Tamera talk, she never talks like that. But I guess because she had to defend her husband in any way possible, even though she probably knows The Real. See what I did there? People was looking at her crazy. Like Adrienne Bailon, who was one of her co-hosts, like you saw in the beginning of the clip, she had her hand over her chest like, where is this coming from? And they probably were shocked because they probably never heard Tamera talk like that. Lonnie Love was sitting there looking into the camera like, what is this girl talking about? Then you had Jenny Mai looking at her like, okay. And it's like, okay, Tamera, you're being very performative right now, which she was in that moment. And people are looking at that like, Tamera, and you wonder why people rock with Tia more. But yeah, I wanted to show that clip right there, but I also wanted to show not an excerpt, but a quote, so to speak, from a few years ago, where Tamera was talking about how her husband Adam Housley went off on her about this mayo comment that she made. So as you can see right here, it says, watch, Tamera Mori says husband checked her for thinking all white people love mayo. She said apparently Tamera opened up to her fellow co-host and audience recently about her husband Adam Housley checking her for assuming that he likes mayonnaise just because he's white. Tamera is quoted as saying, I was actually checked. I was checked by my white husband, to be honest with you guys. Well, I made a sandwich. You guys know where I'm going. So I made a sandwich and I had some mayonnaise. And I said, Adam, do you want a lot of mayo on your sandwich? Because it's like a racial thing that white people love mayonnaise and black people love fried chicken. But I didn't mean it in a derogatory way. I was trying to help him. He said, Tamera, I don't like mayo because I'm white. I actually hate mayo. And look at it, has an exclamation point there. So I don't know if he was yelling at her, but it sounds like he was being stern with her. He felt triggered by that. Mind you, like she said, she didn't mean it in a derogatory way. She was just asking, do you want mayo on your sandwich? All he had to do was say yes or no. He turned it into a whole thing of, oh, so you just think because I'm white, I like mayo? Like, who goes off like that? And this is the man that she married. This is the man she had, what, 2, maybe 3 kids with. It was at that point when people heard that story where people were saying, Tamera, you need to leave this dude. Now, this is like maybe over 5 years ago. It had to be. I think this was pre woo woo. And they're still married to this day, even after that. And people were saying, Tamera, you might need to leave him just based on that alone. Because if he will go off on something as minute as that, what else is pissing him off? What else is triggering him when it comes to his racial identity? But she's still with him. And then she goes on to say, thank you, Adam, for teaching me that not all white people like mayonnaise. Wow. And this is exactly why people made the comments about her back then with this, and they're still making those comments about her now to this day. And it's actually very shameful on her part rather than anything. And you look at that clip where she says her husband is not a racist, and we're like, Tamera, are you sure about that? The better question is, do you even believe that? After all, you lay next to this man every night, as far as we know. You have kids with this man. You've been married to this man for many years now. So I question about him being racist. Just yes, based on him working at Fox News, because we all know that a lot of people that work over at Fox News, 90% of them, especially if they're PC, have an anti-black animus to them. It's almost like that's baked into the application before they even get the job. So what he said at the beginning, what he said right here, is like, Tamera, wake up and smell the wine, because everybody else is acknowledging what it actually is except her. Like, she wants to live in La La Land. Hey, it is what it is, I suppose. But all in all, nobody believes that story that Adam Housley told. Nobody does not believe that this man does not have some anti-black animus to him. And to Tamera Housley, we don't know what you're going to do, but this is the guy, again, this is the guy she chose. This is the guy that chose to marry her and have kids with her and all types of stuff like that. But when you couple the stuff that I went over today in this video, something ain't crushing the grapes, so to speak.